Hunters is a new thriller series on Amazon Prime that was executive produced by Jordan Peele, and that's why I watched it. Oh, also, it has Al Pacino in it, and that made me interested. And, yeah, Ted Mosby's in it. And it has a lot of things to say about Nazis bad and what makes a hero. But it's a little too tied up in its own narrative to speak with a clear voice on anything. I have very mixed feelings about this one. So let's talk about Hunters on today's episode of Project Shadow.
Can you hear me? I have something to say. Project Shadow starts now.
Hello everybody, how are you doing today? My name is Charlie, you might know me better as sci-fi fantasy writer C.E. Dorset, and on today's episode we're going to be talking about Hunters. Because I watched it, and I have thoughts. But before we get into it, if you haven't already, please do take a moment to rate this podcast in whatever app you're listening to me on. It really does help out a lot. It tells the algorithm to share the podcast with more people. The more people that listen, the bigger the community. The bigger the community, the better the chance we have of actually communicating with each other. And after all, that's why I do this in the first place. Thank you to everybody who's already done that. And if you're listening to me on an app that doesn't allow you to rate, maybe if you know somebody you think would like this podcast, share it with them. That helps out more than you know. I don't know what I thought I was getting into, but this wasn't it. So the trailers for Hunters made me think that it was going to be a, I don't know, Quentin Tarantino-esque revenge fantasy hunting down Nazis after the war. And it is a revenge fantasy about hunting down Nazis after the war. It takes on Operation Paperclip head on. And yeah, it does that. It has a lot to say about what makes someone a hero and a villain, and what the difference between them is. And what the difference between the Hunters and the Nazis is. It has a lot to say. And I feel like this is just becoming like the clip that I just need to clip out and just clip into most of my reviews because I've been saying it way too much. But it's left me with many, many mixed feelings. Number one, I am not going to address the concerns put out by the Auschwitz Memorial because I am still mulling them over. I think that anytime you deal with the topic of the Holocaust, an event where 11 million humans were murdered because of hatred and bigotry, you have to be respectful and caring with the topic. Having said that, I enjoy media where Nazis get killed and punished for their evil villainy because they deserve to be punished for their evil and villainy. So I don't know where I stand on, the fact that they made up stories about people in the camps, because definitely, especially having finished the series, I'm kind of glad that they didn't use real people's names and identities. I have so many mixed feelings. And let's just throw that one on the pot. Because, yeah. The main premise of the show revolves around a group of Holocaust survivors who learn that the people that tortured them and that murdered 11 million people are living free in the United States. and then they are going to punish them. Okay. We get to learn a lot about our cast throughout this, and the one thing that I have to say that is really probably one of the hardest things about the series is I think the performances were really good. I think all of the actors did wonderfully well, and like Saul Robotnik it's just, the cast is really good. I could go through each one individually and talk about what I liked about their performances, from Al Pacino all the way down, all the way through to even the bit parts and the smaller characters. I think everybody did a good job. I think they knew when to be cheesy and when to ham it up, and when to be serious and when to just bring that pathos in. There are so many scenes where I'm just going to speak for myself here, really connected with the suffering that these characters went through. And while at times I questioned the means by which they were getting retribution, especially because they do bring in Simon Wiesenthal at one point in the story, who very much makes a statement that what they're doing is wrong, and that what he's doing is the way that they should be doing it. And I agree with that. As a general perspective of mine, I don't have a problem with bad things happening to Nazis. I just don't. Whether it's Indiana Jones showing them as villains, whether, for goodness sakes, I don't even care about Quentin Tarantino doing his violent revenge fantasy movie that I didn't watch because I don't like Quentin Tarantino movies, but I don't have a problem with it. Like, kill Nazis, fine. Nazis are evil. They did terrible things. Okay. It's fine. The problem that I have with this show is one that, like with many things, I can't really talk about until we get into spoilers. But even before we get into some of those things, there's a lot to like about the series. I really liked how they embodied the spirituality of the characters. I like some of the fun vignettes that they did to really drill home some of the points the show had, even though it did feel preachy at a few points. I don't care. Like, it didn't bother me, because if you're looking somebody directly in the eyes and going, Nazis are bad, I'm kind of okay with it, because that's everyone should agree on that. That's not a controversial point. Everyone should agree. Nazis are bad. But having said all that, I think the choice of characters that they did, having one of the main Nazis that we see be a quite literal, I don't know if we're going to say, if I should say sociopath or psychopath. He's a murderer. He's a serial killer who happens to be a Nazi. And what I don't like about his character is I feel like, until we meet unlike some of the other characters, the Nazis that they talk about, where we just see that they don't care, that their hatred blinds them to the humanity of others. Focusing as much as we do on the one character who is clearly mentally challenged, he has problems and should be in a psych ward taking antipsychotics. He's criminally insane. It gives the sense that the Nazis themselves were criminally insane, and that in some ways absolves them from being the monsters that they were. And I'm not a big fan of that, because the cold, calculated, unfeeling machinery of the Nazi Party was thought through. It was not the product of mental illness. And I feel like the fact that the one Nazi that we get to know the most about through the series clearly suffers from mental illness that drives them to just kill people, and he kills a lot of people. it I think detracts from the overall message. And that's, I think, more than anything, that's the problem that this series had, is that it detracted from its own message. It took some side roads and made some choices with several of the storylines that prevented it from being at least a clear statement that Nazis are bad. And I don't know that I would recommend this series. I really don't. It like I said, the performances were really good. And I am kind of curious if it gets a second season, what that season will be like, especially with the aftermath of what happens in this season and its two reveals at the end. The one that makes you rethink everything that you watched, and the other one that is so blindingly obvious that, of course that was going to be true in the setting. But it happened. It is a show that exists, and I want to talk about it, but I think I'm going to have to do that on the other side of spoilers. So we're about to enter the spoiler zone, and with the exception of one twist that I am going to be spoiling probably right away when we go into the spoiler zone, because it's the main thing that I want to talk about, and it's the thing that I think takes the most away from the series. I don't think that this is a show that can be spoiled, in that if you know history, and I think that's where a lot of people are going to be surprised about this. Like, I don't know how many people know about Operation Paperclip, that Werner von Braun was a Nazi, for example, that he was responsible for the death of thousands of slaves in his factories and thousands of people because he was building V1 and V2 rockets for the Nazis. I don't know how many people are aware of that history and the stuff that we did to whitewash their records so that they could come over here and work for us. So some of that may be a surprise. I'm not considering any of that spoilers, which is why I said it now. Because a lot of the reveals throughout the series are from historical facts. So I don't know how much of this can be spoiled, but if you still want to watch Hunters and you don't want to know anything that happens, check out now. I'm going into spoilers. Spoilers are incoming in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. You'll notice that I'm referring to a lot of the characters by their actor names, and it's because the events at the end of while we were watching the show, I was referring to them by their character names because their characters were interesting and I was curious where the story was going. And then we get to the end and a reveal happens, and honestly, the only person I can remember now is Al Pacino. What his character was called, I really don't care anymore. Yeah. That's kind of... That's the problem. Like, the end, like the last episode of this series, like, it would have been interesting. I probably would have recommended it if it wasn't for the last episode in the season. Because in the last episode of the season, you learn that Al Pacino isn't actually playing a Jew. He's playing a Nazi who killed the character that he's pretending to be, and that he took on his life to the point where he ended up kind of living his life. He ended up actually converting to Judaism and going to synagogue and learning to read Hebrew and read through the Torah and the Talmud and all of this to the point where he eventually, I don't know, feels that it's some repayment that he can do, maybe, to start the Hunters to kill the other Nazis because reasons, but he's not doing this for redemption. I mean, he says it like 5 times. I'm not doing this for redemption. So why are you doing it? Like, that reveal, like, I get it as a twist. Like, it's a gut punch because he's a character that I kind of liked over a lot of the show. I felt that he was taking things a bit too far. And in hindsight, I can clearly see where they set up that he would eventually be revealed to be somebody other than who he was. But the reveal itself just I don't understand the show now. Like, I really don't understand the show, because it would be one thing if any of the other characters was revealed to be a secret Nazi. And I still have some suspicions about the nun. I have many suspicions about the nun, that she is a secret Nazi, which is really troubling because she's Jewish. But anyway, I have many feels about the nun. Why did he start this whole thing then? What is the point of view? Like, this is where shows who are trying to be clever, and why I unless I actually have an idea for a twist, like a real serious plot twist, I try not to do them, because a bad twist is the easiest way to destroy a story. And I was enjoying this series. I wasn't loving it, but I was enjoying the series up to the moment where, because I figured it out before Jonah did, just before the characters reveal it, because all of a sudden it was just so heavy-handed, and it was like, oh, you're a Nazi. And he's like, I'm a Nazi, and la 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 la, but look at all the good that I'm doing, helping you kill other Nazis, and no, it's not going to make up for the horrible things that I did, like murdering your grandfather, but la 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 la. And that's okay, because you can't kill me, because you're not a killer. And yeah, he is a killer. And I just don't care anymore. Like, I don't know what they were going for, what they were thinking with that ending. Because I don't think that there were any heroes in the story. I mean, maybe the FBI agent who maybe is starting her own thing, and maybe that's what they gave us 2 different proposals for season 2 that, I don't know, maybe they'll go on concurrently or somehow merge into one, or they want to see which more people are interested in and then do that one. I don't know. But they set up 2 completely different season 2s. But at the same time, everything that you saw in season 1 was basically a lie. Everything that you saw in season 1 was a lie, and we killed off one character that you loved. We're going to just ship off one of the other characters because she just can't handle it because of all the bad stuff that's happened, and this on top of it because Al Pacino's a monster. And not Al Pacino in particular, but the character that he played. And he played it really, really well until this final episode, and he did everything but twirl his waxed mustache. That's the only thing really missing from the final episode to make this story complete. And it's really upsetting and frustrating that so much of the show was interesting, and it was, I think, good conversation starters about what is it that you actually need to do to not, how do you control this? What should someone have to pay for being part of a genocide? How do you go about this? When justice fails you, what is your recourse? What do you do? That's such an interesting question. And it's a question they could have done a lot of different things with. But by ending it by telling us that the main Nazi hunter, the one who started the whole thing, the one that was helping them round up and kill all the other Nazis, who was the voice for that form of justice, was a Nazi all along. Well, didn't you just answer your own question? I mean, honestly, didn't you just answer your own question? Simon Wiesenthal was right the whole time. Everything that you're doing is wrong. There's no point for a season 2 unless it's going to be about the Wiesenthal Center or a fictionalized version thereof. And we're done now. It's over. We're done. But of course, that's not what's going to happen. They're either going to go off to Germany because the nun has a plan with the people that she's working for, or we're going to follow the FBI agent who's going to get secret funding from the government to do things. If we could just cut this one episode out, if we could just get rid of this one episode, it would have at least been an interesting series. But it really does come down to this one episode that just kind of destroys everything. And of course, the other reveal that I haven't talked about yet, that, Hitler's still alive, and the colonel, that was Eva Braun the whole time. Well, of course it was Eva Braun, and of course Hitler's still alive because everything's coming from Argentina. And we all know the conspiracy theories of what happened to Hitler after the war. It's really, it amazes me that it was able to go to this point and they still thought that this was a good ending. And I get it. It's a big surprise when it happens because, well, yes, in retrospect, you can look back and see where it's set up. No one considered what it does to the actual plot of the series or to the fate of the characters or to anything. It just falls, it makes the whole series fall apart. It's like the last season of Game of Thrones. I don't care about the show anymore. I can't go back and rewatch it. I tried. I don't care anymore. I know how it ends. It ends badly. It ends stupidly. It ends dumb. And so there's no point in having the emotional investment that I had in any of those characters. And that's what they did in the final episode of this season. Everything that you cared about means nothing. Congratulations. See you in season 2. And if they do get a season 2, I'm probably going to watch it just to see if they can try to backpedal or something to make it work again. But, oh, goodness. Oh, goodness. It was a thing. So, Hunters, it's a thing that happened. I would love to know what you think, especially if you saw this series. What did you think about it? And if you want to talk about any of the actual themes that were in it, let me know. In the show notes, you'll find a link to the voice message system. Keep it short, keep it clean so I can use it on the show. I would love to hear from you. If you'd rather hit me up on social media, I am CE Dorset on both Twitter and Instagram, and you can find links to everything that I do over at projectshadow.com. If you have the means to join the project and help out with everything that's going on here, like keeping the lights on, keeping the bills paid, and everything, down in the show notes, you'll also find a link to both listener support and my Patreon. Thank you to everybody who already does that. It means the world to me. It really does. But don't feel any pressure. If you don't have any money right now or you don't feel like giving, that's perfectly all right. But if you know somebody you think would like this podcast, do share it with them. That helps out more than you know. Alrighty. So, Hunters, happened. Until next time, don't forget to have the fun. Bye.